1975 seemed to be a particularly productive year at WHAS. This program, Emotional Pain, Who Needs It?, was another award-winning production. This is probably one of the deepest, most complicated subjects I ever dealt with. Emotional shells. As I point out, they isolate you from experiencing emotional pain, but later isolate you from being able to experience real love. A real two-edged sword. What I did here was use a pre-produced piece to set up the subject, paint the picture, if you will, for telephone response. And in that regards, it worked beautifully. This was one of the few times I pre-auditioned a production for professional evaluation. I just wanted to be sure my views were 100% correct. For you radio bugs, if you ever have any doubts about radio production material, check it out with the pros first before airing. From 1975, Emotional Pain, Who Needs It?
Emotional pain. Who needs it? Not me. Or do I? Why are people so afraid? Afraid to say or show what they really feel? Oh, you hear the standard cop-out. Well, I've just been hurt too many times in the past. Why take another chance? Or, well, my feelings are personal, of no concern to anyone but myself. I just receive. I don't transmit. I'm just an observer. What you have here is really the beginning of a protective shell, a shield, if you will. Imagine a drinking glass turned upside down with you under it. Shells are neat. They take only a short time to build, and if you set your mind to it, a long, long time to tear down. You can look out and see other people. Other people can look in and see you, but really can't get to you, can't get close to you. And that's really the problem. Personality shells, while they protect you from possible pain, they also protect you from possible joy. Wherever the shell is in one's mind, whatever area of life, consciously, there's nothing. It's neither hot nor cold. It's stagnant, status quo. And it's really such a waste of precious life. If someone else passed judgment on you and said henceforth you will have no more conscious feelings in this area or that, I'm sure you would tell that person to politely get lost, that they had no right. You would not stand still for someone else to cut you out of life or off from life. If someone else attempted it, you would rebel. Yet you, the person who should care most about you, can easily build a shell and cut yourself off from life. In the long run, you can hurt yourself far more than anyone else could. And the sad part about it is, basic shells are usually reserved for expensive items, important feelings. If they were not important to you, if you were not sensitive to the feelings, there would be no need for a shell. Now, imagine millions of people walking around with giant gaps in their personalities, and these millions meeting other millions with still more gaps. What happens to compatibility? If you're lucky, you meet a person that has the same giant personality gap you do, and together you both deny each other this important part of life. Deny to each other that it even exists. If you're not lucky, you just become incompatible. So far, we've only talked about the conscious problems with shell building, self-denial of total personality, two-party personality incompatibility. But perhaps the greatest problem still lies ahead, personal subconscious conflict. While mental shells and shields work quite effectively in the conscious mind, they have little effect on one's subconscious. That part remains true to the real you. It still hungers to be fed that important part of life that your conscious mind, because of the shell, denies even exists. Now, you're at conflict with yourself. You have become incompatible within yourself. You can't even get along with you anymore. You can't even get close to you anymore. you don't know you anymore. And the longer a shell is allowed to exist, the deeper the subconscious conflict goes. That sounds pretty heavy, but what it means is pretty soon you feel sad or bad or depressed and don't even know why. The shell seemed like such a simple and quick solution in the beginning. It eased the pain. It made it easier to cope with life then, but can make it impossible to cope with life later. Let's take, for example, the most common cause for shell building, love. Let's say a highly sensitive person falls in love and loses. It hurts. Hurts to indescribable depths, to the point where one would almost do anything to get over the pain, or at least be able to cope with the pain. But the pain lingers. Bitterness starts creeping in. Love, who needs it? Who wants it? It just causes pain. Then the shell starts creeping in. Look, here I am. I've got the solution. I can isolate you from this pain. Hold it in limbo. You don't have to work it out now. We'll do it later when you feel better. Let me, your new shield, handle this. I'll protect you. And then the giant lie. Trust me, you'll never have to worry or be hurt by love again. The lie exists because the shell can do nothing for the needs of the subconscious part of your mind. It can't change it. It can only confuse it, frustrate it. That sensitive person still needs love, still hungers for love. But now the protective shell makes it totally unobtainable. The next time you find yourself in a conflict, emotional pain, and saying something like, well, who needs it? Not me. Think about it, don't you? Isn't that, in the long run, a lot healthier than the alternative?
This afternoon, on the comment line, our subject matter is emotional shells. And Nancy, what would your experience be with emotional shells?
For one thing, I'm divorced, and that right there causes a lot of conflict and everything. Mm-hmm. And I have 2 children. My experience has been for 2 years now, and I just feel like I've been hurt so bad by the first person that every person I've been out with recently, well, and in the future and everything, that they couldn't love me, and I couldn't love them. More or less, it's more that I couldn't love them as much as I did with my husband and everything. And I've realized quite a few times, and I can't help myself, that I get into a depression where I don't even know what I'm depressed about sometimes. And I'm like wringing my hands, and I'm crying and everything. And I don't even understand it myself. And it's a lot of things build up in your mind and everything, and you build up a resistance to other people and everything. You start to grow to the point where you say, well, I don't need this, so I get away from it and I'll be okay. And everything that was said in that, recording that you had is true. And it's kind of hard to get out of it, and you're always trying to find somebody to give you an answer. And it seems like nobody can give you the right answer, or you're not satisfied with that answer.
Right. Of course, probably the answer lies within you, and it's a matter of time. And I think the important thing, though, would be to realize that there's a possibility of developing a shell when you go through a traumatic experience like a divorce, and being on guard against doing that, and probably seeking, just like our marriage counselors, to try to hold the marriage together. Mm-hmm. There are some excellent programs as far as coming down out of a marriage. Mm-hmm. that are extremely beneficial. Group therapy sessions with qualified psychologists. Mm-hmm. And they are very beneficial. I guess the main thing, though, people, when they go through an experience like that, they feel like, well, sure, I know other people have gone through the same thing, but not like I'm going through it, you know.
Yeah, that's...
You really feel very much within yourself that yours is a special thing, and it is to you.
That's true. Yes.
But the important thing is it's like an accident, you know. If you're in a car and you're speeding down the highway and you have an accident and you get hurt physically, you go to a hospital, you know. I think there are such things like emotional accidents, right? Then they need help also.
Yes, that's right. Well, I realize this, but like I say, I guess it's just something that you have to figure out by yourself, and time is supposed to heal everything, but I'm the kind of person, I'm very impatient, and it doesn't seem like it seems like there's more time than I want it to be, you know, between my kids trying to find a father and trying to find someone that would love me as much as I think that they should.
Right.
So
right.
It's very hard to analyze myself, which is good in a way, because a lot of people, they just keep it built up, and sooner or later they bust. You know, they just can't hold it back anymore.
That's true, and of course, then if you have children involved, the additional pressures, the possible pressures from the children, can even make it more confusing.
Right.
But you know, it's like the thing about the accident. You know, if you've got a physical problem, then you get hurt physically, then you go to a hospital, and it's the same thing with with the mind too. When you go through a traumatic experience, sometimes it's difficult for you to be able to work yourself out of it.
Right.
But for someone else, like a trained psychologist, it can really be a great help.
Yes. Well, I've often wondered if I should admit that I should go and talk to someone like this. That's another thing, you know. You think, well, should you, go and talk to somebody? Would people think that there's something wrong with you, and all this kind of stuff? But it's kind of hard to live with this.
Listen, there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's, I think today, life today is by far more complicated than at any other time in history, you know.
Yes, that's for sure.
And we have developed techniques in psychiatry, psychology, and the most important thing is really to be able to get a hold of yourself, and if you can do it within yourself, that's beautiful. But if you can't, then rather than letting it go on, there's help right there at the telephone.
Yeah. Oh, well, I really appreciate talking to you, and I enjoyed what was said on the radio.
Thanks, Nancy.
I really enjoyed it. So, thank you.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Leslie, you had a comment?
My name is Frank, Miss Frank.
Yes, Miss Frank.
Leslie Frank.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes, what I wanted to say was the girl that called before about her emotional problem. I know that maybe a lot of people don't believe in God, don't believe in church, but that is the only thing that can help her out. And I think that a lot of these marriage counselors are all right, and doctors, but they can go so far. And I think that if she would pray and ask God to help her, I know He will. And and I think that you all could be a witness on the air too. If you would refer the Lord to them and tell them that that's where they can get their help, because that I think there's the only one that can help.
Right. But it's it's a two-way street though, and the most important thing is what works.
For herself.
Right. It's what works that really matters. And if that works for a person, if they can relate to that and understand that, and it actually be a comfort to them and a help to them, then I think I think that's beautiful, right? But if it doesn't, and if they can't, then there should be an alternate means of coping with the situation.